Sometimes the things that God speaks to us in private aren't meant for the public. They can't handle it. Sometimes the things that God speaks to us in private are just for us, and they're not for everybody or the whole. So one of my favorite characters in the Bible is actually a teenager. His name is Joseph, and when we meet him, he is the son of Jacob, and his story takes place across about the last 12 to 13 chapters of Genesis. And where he starts is he's 17 years old, and he's his father's favorite son. And the Bible doesn't shy away from telling us that. In fact, it says that Joseph was 17. He was a man of integrity. At one point it says he brought a bad report of his brothers. And while at first it might seem like he's a tattletale, I like to think that he was just standing up for what was right. His father made him a coat that was absolutely beautiful and stunning. He gave him the best clothes. And of course, this might be an opportunity for his brothers to let a little jealousy sneak in. But I want to take this specific part of this story over the next 3 segments, and I want to point out 3 things from our first segment. The first one is Joseph listened. He had 2 dreams from God. The first one was all these bundles of wheat, and all of a sudden he was out there and his wheat rose up higher than the others, and all the other wheats bowed down. And he's like, wow, that's pretty cool. So what does he do? He wakes up and he tells his brothers this, and they're like, are you kidding me? You think we're gonna bow down to you? So then he has another dream, and it's the sun, moon, and 11 stars. And the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were all bowing down to Joseph. So then he goes and he runs and he tells his family, and he gets rebuked by all of them. And his father's like, you think that your mom and I are gonna bow down to you? And he gets this rebuke. And I guess the first thing I want to draw from this is when God speaks to you, listen to him. Listen to what he's saying. The second thing is pray about it. So we see this mistake that Joseph makes, where instead of praying about it and saying, God, what does this mean? What do you want me to do with this information? He runs and tells his family, and his family rebukes him. Sometimes we just need to pray about things that God speaks to us. We don't need to go and tell other people what is happening. Sometimes those things are just for us, but we'll never know unless we pray and ask God for that discernment. His family couldn't handle the depth of his dream. They weren't able to handle it, and they took it at face value, and it made them then hate him. And the last thing that I pull from this is that we need to be humble. Sometimes the things that God speaks to us in private aren't meant for the public. They can't handle it. Sometimes the things that God speaks to us in private are just for us, and they're not for everybody or the whole. Sometimes they are for everybody or the whole, but we'll never know unless we pray about it. You can't expect the public to understand what God does in you in private.